40 years ago, China introduced major economic reforms, lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty and leading to it becoming the second largest economy in the world. Here is the story of how China changed. In pictures, this is what Chang'an Avenue, a major street in the capital Beijing, looked like in 1978. 4 decades on, the street looks pretty different. Car ownership in China has soared. There are now over 300 million registered vehicles in the country, while bike ownership has stopped. It is a result of China's urbanization and economic growth, but has also come at a price. Frequent traffic jams in many cities have led to license plate quotas being imposed, and the World Health Organization says more than 1 million people in China die every year due to air pollution. Compare a 1978 shop window with one from this decade. As China's gross domestic product (GDP) has skyrocketed, its shopping habits have changed too. Chinese shoppers are among the world's highest consumers of luxury goods. President Xi Jinping emphasized China's economy and how it had transformed people's lives during a long speech on Tuesday marking the anniversary of the economic reforms. Grain coupons, cloth coupons, meat coupons, fish coupons, oil coupons, tofu coupons, food ticket books, product coupons and other documents people once could not be without, have now been consigned to the Museum of History, he said. The torments of hunger, lack of food and clothing, and the hardships which have plagued our people for thousands of years have generally gone and will not come back. There is even a political element to this. As Chinese consumers have grown richer, they have become increasingly influential. Several companies have been forced to apologize after offending Chinese sensibilities, and while foreign brands are generally coveted in China, more and more shoppers are starting to say they prefer local brands. It's a sentiment that Mr. Xi also touched on in his speech, when he said, China is increasingly approaching the center of the world stage. No one is in a position to dictate to the Chinese people what should or should not be done. Life has changed significantly for children of the 2010s compared to children of the 1970s. For starters, they are likely to live longer. China's life expectancy was 66 back in 1978, and is now about 76. They are also more likely to have a better education. Literacy rates increased from 66% in the early 1980s to 95% in 2010. For most Chinese children in the 1970s, going on an overseas holiday would have been almost unthinkable. Today China has the world's largest number of outbound tourists who spent billions of dollars while abroad. Chinese students are now also more likely to end up studying abroad. According to Chinese government figures, China is currently the world's largest source of international students. One thing has not changed as much as the government would like, though. The birth rate in 1979, a year after starting economic reforms, the government imposed a one-child policy to try and curb population growth. Birth rates were declining anyway, but the controversial policy was harshly enforced in some cases. Couples who violated the policy could face punishments ranging from fines and the loss of employment to forced abortions and sterilization. China's population, like those of many other developed countries, is now aging. In 2015, the government decided to end the one-child policy and allow couples to have 2 children. There is even speculation that the policy may be relaxed further to allow 3 or more children in the near future. But many Chinese millennials see having more children as too expensive or a burden. on their careers. As economies change, so do people's diets and what they want to spend their money on. Here is a marketplace in the central city of Xi'an, back in 1978, and here's what some of Xi'an street markets look like now. Many of the signs are advertising meat dishes, and statistics show meat consumption in China has risen significantly over the past few decades. Pork, for example, used to be considered a luxury food reserved for special occasions. Now, figures suggest the average Chinese person will consume about 40 kg of pork per year. Reporting by the BBC's Healthier Children, 2 Scandinavian women tourists have been found dead in Morocco with cats to their necks, the country's interior ministry said. Both bodies were found near the town of Inro, in the high Atlas mountain range, near the foot of North Africa's highest peak, Mount Tepco. The women, from Denmark and Norway respectively, have not yet been named. A police investigation has been launched into their deaths. The Interior Ministry statement said, the United States military says it has killed 62 fighters from the Islamist group Al-Shabaab in 6 airstrikes in Somalia. 4 airstrikes on Saturday killed 32 militants, and a further 2 on Sunday killed 28, it said. In a statement, these were the deadliest air attacks in Somalia since November 2017, when the United States said it had killed 100 militants. Somalia has seen a sharp increase in the number of airstrikes and casualties since President Donald Trump took office in the US in January 2017. A tally by the Bureau of Investigative Journalism reveals that at least 400 people have been killed in airstrikes since the beginning of 2017, far more than the previous 10 years combined. The latest strikes bring to at least 40 the number carried out in Somalia so far this year, compared with 35 recorded in 2017. The United States has a huge military base in neighboring Djibouti, from where it launches attacks on the militants. Mr. Trump gave the US military greater authority in March 2017 to attack militants in Somalia. Traditionally, United States presidents have been wary of intervening in Somalia since ATN Special Forces soldiers died fighting militias in the capital Mogadishu in 1993, a battle dramatized in the film Black Hawk Down. No civilians were killed in the latest airstrikes, which were carried out in coordination with the Somali government, the US military said. Alongside our Somali and international partners, we are committed to preventing Al-Shabaab from taking advantage of safe havens from which they can build capacity and attack the people of Somalia. The United States Africa Command said Al-Shabaab, which is linked to Al-Qaeda, has not yet commented on the latest strikes. Somalia-based security think tank the Herald Institute said, in a report published in November, that Al-Shabaab had been forced to change tactics following the upsurge in airstrikes. The institute said the group was now conducting fewer mass attacks on military bases, but attacks on government offices and businesses which refused to pay its taxes had increased markedly. The US State Department, in its most recent report on terrorism, described Somalia as a terrorist safe haven and said Al-Shabaab remained a threat despite suffering setbacks. The group retained control over large parts of the country and the ability to carry out high-profile attacks using suicide bombers, explosive devices, mortars, and small arms. The report added, a poacher has been ordered to watch the Disney film Bambi repeatedly after he was convicted of illegally killing hundreds of deer. Missouri hunter David Perry Jr. must view the film at least once a month during his year-long sentence. He was arrested in August, along with 2 family members, for killing the deer, taking their heads, and leaving their bodies to rot. Prosecutors said, it is reportedly one of the biggest poaching cases in Missouri history. On top of the jail sentence for the illegal deer hunting, Judge Robert George ordered Perry, Jr. to view the Walt Disney movie Bambi, with the first viewing being on or before December 23,
2018
and at least one such viewing each month thereafter. During his spell in prison, the 1942 cartoon about woodland creatures shows a hunter kill the mother of eponymous deer character Bambi. A months-long investigation spanning several states led to the arrest of Barry Jr., his father David Perry Sr., and his brother Kyle Perry, according to local newspaper, the Springfield News Leader.